Hello everyone! Today's video is brought to you because of some tweets that I got from Firewall 5000, and he's a YouTuber from way back in the day, getting back into the swing of things, and he decided to go film a hashtag #NoDapple, No Dakota Access Pipeline protest. And this is something that I've done and posted on my channel. And so he decided to talk to me about his plans to go film the one in his city. Well, these are some of his tweets that he had to me today. He said, "At Agent of Doubt, just filmed a protest. It was small and couldn't get lost in the crowd. People were looking at each other, especially me since I was filming. I didn't look closely at others, but it seemed like two were looking at me with suspicion. Felt uncomfortable and left. Is that typical?" Okay, so yes, everyone. What I want to explain in more detail than a tweet can provide is yes, if you go out to film protests, you will have people who are uncomfortable being filmed, even though they're comfortable making public statements to people out in a public place, intentionally doing it out where everyone can see. Yes, you will still have people who do not want to be filmed or think that it's awkward, and they just have weird feelings about it. And I have a very long history of dealing with this since I started filming activism like 5 years ago. And so all of the different things that I've filmed, yes, I could name like numerous times where that has come into play. Most recently was during the Black Lives Matter march to the mayor's office. People were looking at me as though I might be a policeman. Now, I'm a white guy, and I have a trendy white guy beard, and at the time, I was actually wearing a pair of black khakis. You know, I had a shirt not unlike this one, you know, but the black khakis that I was wearing had like cargo pockets, and those are really good for holding all of my cameras, right? I don't know which camera I'm going to want to use. There's the one that I'm filming on right now. It's a Sony Handycam. I could just whip out the GoPro. You know, I don't know what I'm going to use, so I just stuff it all in my pockets. And unfortunately, that pair of pants a couple of times has had people thinking that I'm a police officer. And I am very overweight, like a BMI over like 34, right? And still, they're like, oh, he might be a police officer because he's white and he has cargo pants that are black. So yeah, I've had people not want to trust me until I show up to many of the different things that they show up to at this, you know. After a while, I've been able to get a couple of protesters to trust me as much as giving me tips as to where flash mobs are going to happen, and giving me tips as to what actions cannabis protesters are going to make. I have some ins with the feminist protesters for V-Day, and anyways, the kinds of things that I run into with people being shy from cameras, they fall into like three categories, okay? The first category of people not wanting to be filmed is body issues, right? And I'm not talking about how I have over 1,000 videos on my channel with the camera not panning to my belly down here, because I can show my belly, you know, but I'm talking about women who do not want to be filmed at all because they do not think that they look like they did when they were in high school. And unfortunately, when a lot of people get political in their lives, is around the same time as their body starts to react to all the fast food that they're eating. So they don't feel pretty, They don't feel good and they don't want to be filmed. And that's I use the female perspective as the example there because it is the lion's share of what I encounter with that type of aversion to being filmed. The second type of reason why people don't want to be filmed is they're making a political statement that they wouldn't want their boss or their neighbors to see. They don't want to show up on the news. They want to blend into the crowd and have their party and have their cake and eat it too, but they don't ever want to show up on their social media as being one of those people. So if it's something that just being seen and recognized might get them in trouble with their job, they don't want to be filmed. And then there's the third kind, okay? And this is about 10% of the protesters that you'll see at any given event. But you'll see them more in events where not many people show up, because these are the hardcore protesters. And these are the ones that believe that every event is going to be infiltrated by agent provocateurs. Now, I'm going to leave the word agent provocateurs in the description box so that you can just cut and paste it and Google it, because that is a rabbit hole that you can spend all day on, okay? And I'm also going to leave the word COINTELPRO down there because that's another thing that they all know about. And basically, in a nutshell, it is they believe that some police or government agency is planting fake protesters that are there to gather information on them, like get all their names, take pictures of all of them, and identify them all, and also to instigate them to do things that would get them arrested. And these things might not necessarily be outside of the scope of what might happen at a protest. Like, the protest could be at the cusp of turning from nonviolence to violence. And they believe that it's the agent provocateur's job at that moment to throw a rock at policemen. To do anything to change the tone of the protest from peaceful to violent. It's their job to make the damages to the windows of all the stores down the street look a lot worse than they could have been if the rest of the peaceful protesters just marched down the road. Because they're there to discredit the movement, right? And as much as I would like to think that is all paranoia, it isn't. And the last thing I'm going to leave you in the description box is a movie called Into the Fire. And the reason why I'm leaving that is because during the Occupy movement, across the world, and especially in the United States, different chapters of the Occupy movement in different cities were screening the movie Into the Fire to teach each other about agent provocateurs. And it is a very violent, very explicit film. And it's about the G20 summit, which happened 1 year before the Occupy movement. The G20 summit in Toronto for 2010, right? The G20 summit happens like every fucking year. But the 2010 G20 summit in Toronto had a whole bunch of protesters, and in the middle of those protesters, a bunch of people wearing all black and wearing black bandanas decided to join the protesters and do a lot of things that were, of course, caught on camera and great photo ops. They would burn police cars that were just the right spot to get the best camera angles. They smashed windows, all sorts of stuff. But it was proven that some of them would cross police lines. And the video is very explicit in the way that it shows that these were actually agent provocateurs from the police rioting while the rest of the protesters were trying to be more peaceful. and they were trying to incite those protesters to do more things so that they could arrest them. So that's why you're going to get some weird looks when you try filming activists these days. It's because they all know of this. You know, they tell stories to each other around campfires like, ooh, scary, the agent provocateurs. But there actually is a lot of basis and truth for this. If you just look up COINTELPRO and agent provocateurs, you'll find plenty of different instances of this actually being the case, that people were planted within activist groups, especially left-leaning activist groups. Yeah. Hope that explained it enough. Links in the description box. Try to cut yourself off at about an hour before you become a conspiracy theorist, okay? Because the rabbit hole is deep.